What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome in to the NFL Weekly. Week 12 is upon us. Of course, with me, as always, to break it down is my friend and co-host Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing real well. We were just talking about the weather and rain, and I will tell you why it's going to rain tomorrow, Thursday. It is because I had on my calendar, make it to Del Mar for the races. Guess what I'm not going to do tomorrow?
Yep.
I'm not going to go to Del Mar for the races. I don't stand in the rain for anything.
Yeah. And I can't imagine, that you're going to see the best of the best out there running in that more than likely slop. But yeah, so everyone can blame Raider Jim for setting his calendar as they say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him you have a plan. But anyways, obviously here in San Diego, getting ready for our version of winter, and I'm sure wherever you're listening around the globe, or assuming you're not in Bermuda or something like that, or I guess technically the Southern Hemisphere where you're going to be dealing with your summer, time to bundle up, get the chili on the crock pot. A lot of lazy Saturdays and Sundays. And I'm looking forward to it because it always means football is getting real, and the playoffs are, well, in college they're a month away. The NFL about 2 months away, but we are getting down to kind of those scenarios where you can see the divisions. And I don't know if we're fully seeing the cream rise to the top, but we are definitely knowing who is not near the middle, let alone the top. But with that, Raider Jim, your thoughts on week 11 as we continue to grind through the NFL season?
Yeah, I think we had a little more clear path to what's going to happen in the second half of the season, or I should say the end of the season. And yet there are still some inconsistencies out there. The Panthers continue to be one of the most inconsistent teams in football. They won by 3, and I actually had them on some tips I gave to somebody last week and said, take the Panthers, they're going to win. And sure enough, they did. And so what does that say? Good Panthers or really bad Falcons? That's the real question on that game for me. The Commanders and the Dolphins didn't disappoint. We sent another bad game over down to Madrid. I guess we sent them. They weren't in Europe this time. Bengals, just a bad football team. They are just playing really bad right now. Giants, if they could learn to close, if they were a baseball team and they had a closer, they might be contenders. But they aren't baseball, and they don't know how to close, and so therefore they are now 2-9. But wow, what I really came away from that game is the Packers. They're not going to light up much in the playoffs. They'll make it, but I don't think they're the team to be that concerned about. Both you and I, even though we said it's a setup, it's a trap, you used your Admiral Akbar out there. The Bears didn't let me down.
Yeah,
they give me the Bears +3, and sure enough, they did it. They took care of it. And again, what does that really mean? It means the Vikings. That's a real head scratcher out there. Don't know what's going on with old Kevin O'Connell and his Vikings, but they're in bad shape. They're another one. They're going to be standing right there looking at from the outside in, along with the Kansas City Chiefs. Are we seeing the end of the dynasty? Sure looks like it. And when I use that word inconsistency, you can't help but bring up the the LA Chargers, excuse me. Wow. I didn't see that one coming. Thought I could see a shootout. Thought I would see the Chargers score more points than Trevor Lawrence, but they just got schooled. And that was an amazing game to watch. I don't know if you got the chance to see it or not.
Yeah, I did. Well, I watch. I pretty much watch through Red Zone. So you don't really mainly get the game flow, especially for the morning games. But that game, you didn't need to understand the whole nuance to see how that game was going, just from the blips that we were getting on Red Zone. And what I always tell, and look, I'm in a family of Charger fans, so I pretty much warned them. We do a weekly pick 'em, and I got some jeers when I put Jacksonville down. But the fact of the matter is, and it's not really even a Harbaugh thing, the Chargers just don't travel east and play 10 a.m. well. Their 10 a.m. body clock. They're probably their other worst performances besides Washington and Indianapolis earlier in the season, but they were on the road against the Giants, which they lost, and against the Dolphins, which probably, maybe should have lost that game. They definitely didn't play well. But the Chargers, I don't know their schedule off the top of my head, but look, if they got to go to New England and play that Sunday 10 a.m. Divisional or wild card, it'd probably be wild card. That's going to be difficult for them. But I want to start with my thoughts, kind of where you almost finished up when you talked about Kansas City. In horror movies, there's always one character about halfway that is like, no, it's not over. It's not over. It's not over. And they're like, calm down. We set the guy on fire. We ran him over with a semi truck and then we buried him 25 feet down. It's over. And they're labeled the crazy person. I am that crazy person. Do not lose sight of the Chiefs. Again, 5-5. I would have thought you were crazy, but statistically, this team is still very good in all main facets of the game, team-wise. The main thing for them is they were 11-0 last year in one possession games. They are 0-5 this year. That's the universe, whatever, coming back. Now, do they go 0-11 this year? That would obviously be crazy, but all I'm going to say, they're still to be feared. Do not lose sight of the mighty Chiefs. And speaking of mighty, the mighty Patriots seem to be back again. You kind of mentioned it, obviously, Thursday night. They took care of business against the Jets. But Drake May specifically seems to be, they're already talking about Brady, and, that's way, 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 way too early. But this kid looks like the real deal. And I didn't see this one coming. I definitely didn't see him being the best of what we're looking at. With all due respect to Jaden Daniels, he might have had the best season individually. But I think going forward, Drake may be that maybe cream of the crop. And then also sticking there is my last thought, JJ McCarthy. He's got to figure some things out. He needs to play. I don't even want to say a complete game. I just need to see him play a half of consistent quarterback. He will show flashes, but he will also miss wideouts by 5 yards over his head. And he's been very lucky that a lot more haven't been intercepted. I think the Vikings are in real trouble because, look, they had Kirk Cousins in the building and they had Sam Darnold in the building. And now they have JJ McCarthy. And not a whole lot of people necessarily slammed him for letting Darnold go. Maybe they slammed him for drafting JJ McCarthy in the first place. But again, the Sam Darnold that was in Minnesota preseason or last year is a lot different than the Sam Darnold, or at least our perception of him is a lot different. But that's a situation the Vikings do have to figure out. But I think Kevin O'Connell, if anyone can, I think he can. I think he's a really good coach overall. Excuse me. But it was a very interesting week, but as you kind of alluded to, not a whole lot of surprises. Carolina, if you want to go down that route, very inconsistent, but I did see a stat. They are 6-0 when they win the toss, 0-5 when they lose the toss. So maybe that's all you got to do. Live bet right after the coin toss and get out of Dodge. But yeah. But anyways, let's dive into week 12, our usual game previews. 3 of our teams that we would normally cover are going to be on buys, so get a little bit of extra games in here. We got Denver, the Chargers, Miami, and Washington all on buys. I believe this is the last week of buys, maybe one more week. But anyways, let's dive in, and we are going to start with maybe not for nationally the juiciest game of the week, and I'm not saying this tongue in cheek. I think for the podcast, for all that we've talked about Shedeur Sanders, for him to get his first start against the Las Vegas Raiders, I mean, I could not have scripted this podcast to be any better. But for this game, Cleveland is plus 160 on the money line. They will be at Vegas, who is 185 on the money line. They will be 3.5-point favorites. 36.5 is your over-under. As always, no one gets first words on Raider football before Raider Jim. Mr. Martinez, the floor is yours.
Do I have to?
Yes, unfortunately. Yeah, I was ready for that question. I was ready.
So here's the deal with the Raiders. I watched them play the Cowboys the other night, and what an abysmal display of what is supposed to be professional football, especially when you have been a fan of the Raiders as long as I have, and you can't rest on your laurels and hang on to what it used to be. But you know what? There is a certain character that the Raider Nation expects. We want hard hitting. We want at least effort all the way through. I just saw a lot of guys dogging it at the end of plays, or, as I mentioned to you before you hit record, 3 guys standing there and the guy's got 5 yards to go or 5 feet to go before he's in the end zone. Nobody even makes a move at him. They just stand off to the side and look. The offensive line is terrible. You talked about Ashton Jenney, every week. And again, his stats aren't there. But if you watch some of the play calling, you're going to do a pitch to the wide right, and then you're going to have the edge just standing there waiting for him, because we don't have an offensive line scheme where they're pulling people. Control the box, control the box, control the box. We don't have a game up the middle. And wow, what do you say about the secondary? It is just feast or famine with those guys, and that's a hungry defensive backfield right now, because they're not feasting on anything. So what's going to happen in this game coming up? Shedeur Sanders, he's going to make he's going to make me look real good, I think, before the season's over, if he continues to start, because I said from the get-go, many of the Raider fan base, get him. And I was like, this is not the kid that is going to lead you to the promised land. It's just not going to happen. When even if you're the third quarterback in line, you better have your S together, and you better have your ass ready to go out, and you better be able to step on that field and show everybody why you are supposed to be the number 1 quarterback, not the backup quarterback. What did he do? I think he was 4 for 6 with an interception and a total of 46 yards.
4 for 16.
16. I'm sorry. Yes. 4 for 6. Not a world beater. So he's thrown 250, which is that's not good if you're a shortstop in Major League Baseball hitting 250, let alone this. So we'll see what happens. What he's got going for him is, again, the Raider defense is just not there. Max Crosby was pretty much absent the other night. How's he going to fare against the Cleveland line? Probably a little bit better. The Cleveland defense, though, is the key. They are not that bad. And when you're playing a Raider offense, which is abysmal, 236 yards total offense, 27 on the ground, was the rushing game. It's just not good. It doesn't look good at all. They've got to have that one game where they can put it all together, and they're being handed this one on a platter. If they can make it happen, we'll wait and see. At -3.5, I got to tell you, give me the Browns +4, because I have a feeling they're going to keep it close, and it's going to come down to the leg of Daniel Carlson that's going to keep the Raiders in the game. They're getting a touchdown here, a touchdown there, but overall, the kicking game is all they've got going for them.
Yeah, it was difficult to watch, and the interesting part is, and look, obviously, because of my admiration for Raider Jim, there is a part of me that does kind of pull for the Raiders. But growing up in San Diego, there is always that ingrained hate of the Raiders. They were the biggest rival of the Chargers when I was a fan of the San Diego Chargers. Anyways, but I will say, as much admiration and I want the Raiders to succeed for Raider Jim's sake, I love the downfall of Chip Kelly. It continues at the NFL level. Go play your college game and do your thing there. But this is where the big boys play. You set the Eagles back 5, maybe 10 years, probably more like 5 because they did win a championship fairly soon after. But he deserves nothing professionally, of course, nothing good in terms of, in my opinion. But it does come at the expense of Raider Jim and Ashton Genty, and it is very frustrating, and it's very surprising as well. If I'm taking my bias out of it, because Chip Kelly, as a run game aficionado, offensive coordinator, he likes to run the football, and he's very, very good at it, and he usually knows what he's doing. But I find it hard to believe that not even he can scheme something up to get Ashton Genty more than 7 yards. It's very frustrating for me on the outside, so I can only imagine there for Raider Jim. But in terms of this game, I will say for Shedeur Sanders, look, 4 for 16, I put my head, like, because I didn't see any of it. I was out. But to go back and I saw a supercut of the 16 passes, I'll say this. It looked better than 4 for 16. But again, 4 for 16 that reminded me of Ryan Leaf. That reminded me of like quarterbacks that you were like, oh my gosh, like who's going to, like, is this guy okay? And it looked better. It was probably closer. It probably should have been 7 or 8 out of 16, which still, again, is not good. He did miss some, but there were some passes that, either dropped or just good coverage. This is his kind of, he's got to show it here because everyone's going to be watching. You got both sides that are salivating. They're sitting at the dinner table waiting to, get their side to win or whatever. In terms of this is the way I look at it. I always look at it in terms of offense versus defense, offense versus defense for both teams. I think there is one massive advantage for one of these teams, and it's the Cleveland defense versus the Raider offense. The Raiders defense versus the Browns offense, one of those may dominate. Okay, that's fine. But I know the Browns defense is going to dominate. So with that being said, I'm taking Cleveland plus 3.5. I love the hook. This does kind of feel like a trap, but the last 2 traps I thought I was smart enough to avoid ended up being me overthinking things, including that Chicago game. So I'm just going with it here. Cleveland plus 3.5. And I'm going with the under. I mean, maybe 32.5 would get me over, but I don't know where points are going to come from. I mean, and you know what? If Shedeur Sanders is the person that goes out and gets it done, fantastic. But the only thing I would worry about is a strip sack or something like that from one of these defenses to get a late or an extra touchdown that we're not really expecting. But Cleveland plus 3.5, under 36.5. Moving on to a very, very intriguing game. And for me, this is the ultimate fork in the road for both of these teams. I think we're going to either learn a lot about the Colts and the Chiefs or, well, I think that's about it. But anyways, it's going to be the Colts at Kansas City. Kansas City is going to be 3.5 point favorites. 49.5 is your over under. Money line sits at plus 155 for Indianapolis and minus 180 for Kansas City. Raider Jim, AFC West is your jurisdiction. Get us started. Indy at KC.
Well. Who'd have ever thought we'd be sitting here going into week 12 and saying the Chiefs are playing 500 ball? I mean, if you're a Raider fan and your team is playing 500 ball, it's like you've already made the playoffs. You're just so happy. Chiefs Nation must be very, very concerned right now. And I will tell you, I don't think it's too early to say pretty much every game that they play now, the Chiefs, it is a must-win game. And when you're playing against a team 8-2 who understands, boy, we better keep it up because this could slip away and we could be that asterisk at the end of the season. Like, remember when they were 8-2 and now look, they're not even going to make the playoffs. But I don't think that's going to happen to the Colts. I think that is definitely key right here. we're going to have the Colts coming out, and it's going to be Daniel Jones against the Chiefs defensive front. And guess what? I'm going to give, after what I saw, Denver and Kansas City the other day, I really like the Colts' chances in this one. And I think one of the things the Colts have going for them, along with Daniel Jones, is Jonathan Taylor. I think he's going to be able to put up a big game on the ground. Watch out for that. That's going to open it up for Daniel Jones. Chiefs pass rush, where was it the other day? I mean, I was surprised that they could not exploit Denver a little bit more, which may also be I'm not looking through the right eyes when I look at Denver. But the Chiefs wasn't the old Chiefs team that we've seen of late. So we'll see what happens on this one. But I do like, I see some of these old stats over here. Oh, yeah, but, in history, the Patrick Mahomes has only performed this well in the last 3 years against the Colts. Okay, I don't care. We're talking about what's he going to do this weekend. And what I saw against Denver and a couple other times I've seen him play over the last few weeks, he doesn't have it the way he had it in the past. And I don't know if it's because he's been overexposed or he doesn't have the personnel up front. And I think it's more of that. I think it's that offensive line is doing him no favors. They're not going to have a rushing game too much this week, or a little bit less of a rushing game. Pacheco is still out hurt. You really need that against a team like the Colts, and they won't have that. On the defensive side for the Colts, DeForest Buckner is going to be out. I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference as far as pressuring Mahomes. They're going to find ways to get to him. So on this one, as I look up at the spread here, how can I not take a half a point and give me the Colts +4 in this one? Over under 49.5. I'm going to go under because I don't think the Chiefs are going to put up the points.
Well, everything Raider Jim said is correct, but as I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm the paranoid kid in the corner. That every silhouette is Patrick Mahomes coming and taking everything. And I look at this, and sometimes in the NFL, your eyes don't necessarily deceive you, but certain games you need to go with your gut. And for me, this is a gut game. And it boils down to the fact that Kansas City is third place in the AFC West. They can pretty much kiss the AFC West goodbye, even as the paranoid kid in the corner. But the two teams that are ahead of them are both on byes. This is the most must-win, outside of obviously a playoff game, that Patrick Mahomes has ever played in. And he's going up against Daniel Jones, who has played so above or what our perception of him was, and what he's shown, really. Everything points to Kansas City going out and rising and taking control. And by the end of this, again, I think I'm not even going to buy a half a point here. I think Kansas City wins this one. I think they just put it all together because they realize, I mean, again, it's a cornered animal. But I will say, if the Chiefs do not make the playoffs, the Eagles will get credit for killing that dynasty because of what they did to them in the Super Bowl. So I am hoping, obviously, that is the case, but I am not ready to end this movie just yet. I think the boogeyman is still out there. And this might be an opportunity to get the silver stake through his heart, even though I just mixed up my, monsters there. But I think you understand what I'm saying. So give me Kansas City -3, and I like the over. I do think Kansas City puts up points here. To be completely honest, I don't know if it's been the scheme or they're just not throwing his way, but Sauce Gardner has not been a massive factor for the Colts early on in his Colts career. But we could see that change here with Kansas City, who's probably going to want to chuck it, as Raider Jim kind of mentioned. The run game is not there at the moment. But yeah, give me the over 49.5 in Kansas City -3. Again, the boogeyman, until it's dead, until the mathematics, they're no longer in the hunt. I'm gonna believe they're right behind me. So anyway.
And I have one more thing to add to that game. I forgot to mention it. I did have in my notes, and now I can say aside from Brandon Ferst, the only other person who has come out and said, don't worry about the Chiefs, they're going to be just fine, Patrick Mahomes' dad.
There you go. Well, hey,
how can he be wrong?
Exactly. Well, and trying to think of his first name, because he was he Patrick Mahomes as well?
I think he's Patrick Senior, isn't he?
Yeah, because he was not nearly as fabled as his son, but he was a middle reliever in the mid 90s, I want to say. But anyways, well, look, I don't know. That doesn't make me feel good about that. Because, but hey, if they want to adopt me, I am prepared. I'll put a Chiefs hat on if I get cut into that will. But anyways, moving on to my Eagles as we head into Dallas week. It's going to be the Eagles 3-point favorites as they head to Arlington to face the Dallas Cowboys. 48 is your over-under. Minus 175 on the money line for Philadelphia and plus 150 for the boys. Obviously, the Eagles just continue to trudge along. It's not pretty. It's not fun. Some would call it football waterboarding. It's been a struggle to watch this offense work this season as an Eagles fan, and probably even as a football fan, as many primetime standalone games as they have. I get it. I understand. But at the end of the day, this team is 8-2. And the defense now fully healthy with the addition of Jalen Phillips, who, again, people are just up in arms going, what skeletons does Howie Roseman have on these GMs to get Jalen Phillips for a 3rd-round pick? It's pretty incredible. Also, probably going to get a 3rd-round pick for him or at least compensatory, when Jalen Phillips goes somewhere else. I mean, I would love for Howie to sign him up, but I don't, the capologists even say that's probably too much. But anyways, the Eagles are just fine defensively. Offensively, there are some issues, but they always seem to make the play that they need to make when the time comes. However, I am a little worried that Nick Sirianni is a little bit of a saboteur, because going for it on your own 30-yard line up 10-0 when your defense is absolutely dominated, while your center is walking into the locker room because he's hurt. Lane Johnson is out for 4 to 6 weeks. He's out of this game, and you want to run a tush push on 4th and 1. I think they were 1 of 5 on tush pushes. So hats off to the Lions. They got it done. But at the end of the day, the Eagles still did win despite the questionable decision from Nick Sirianni. Again, if everyone's healthy and you got Cam Jurgens in there, okay, maybe. But again, they get the job done. They're 8-2, and they're pretty much running away with the NFC East. A win here would pretty much put the bow on things. But with that being said, this season, the Cowboys, for me, they are a different team at home. They played the Eagles very tough earlier this season as well, and that was fresh off of the Micah Parsons fiasco. And this all signs point to Dallas for me. Again, even as an Eagles fan, I'm sure there are plenty of Eagles fans rolling their eyes. How can you even call yourself a fan? Well, look, sometimes, you're talking about betting. You got to be honest. And I think Dallas plus 3.5, because of course I'm going to buy the half a point. You have to. I like Dallas here. And usually in this rivalry, it's usually a split because the home team always wins. So again, Philadelphia losing Lane Johnson on the offense. And I do think the defense is bound to maybe have a rough day. The fact that they're still trotting out Adoree Jackson as their number 2 cornerback, and it hasn't really blown up in their face, is kind of astonishing. And I hate to even speak it into the world, but again, just trying to give every angle here. Give me Dallas plus 3.5. I do like the over here, though. I do think we are going to see some points being put up. Dallas's defense is not very good. Trust me, if the Eagles go out and put up whatever 13 points and struggle again against this defense, then I will, start to wonder. But I think all signs point to Dallas here, over 48. Raider Jim, your thoughts?
I would have thought that until I watched how the Cowboys played against the Raiders, and They definitely had a much better game than the Raiders, which isn't saying much. But what I came away this weekend, it was watching what your Eagles did to the Lions. My goodness, that defense was tenacious. They were there, and that's it. Let's not put anything on the bulletin boards. Let's not read the press. We know we're good. Let's go out and show everybody how good we are. I think it's going to happen again over in Jerry's house. And you look at the stats. I mean, Prescott is out of his mind right now.
Yeah.
The way he's throwing the ball. His receivers out of their minds with the catches they're making. You didn't bring it up, but I'm curious to know what you thought about the start of the Raider game when they held out CeeDee Lamb. And,
well, did you hear what happened?
I did not hear what happened.
So now obviously look, I just saw a blurb on I think Facebook or Instagram. So this isn't verified or anything, although there has been kind of some talk about it, but apparently they were gambling till 7 a.m. On game day. And yeah, so which is, I'll be completely honest, because I forgot to mention it as well. I'm very surprised because as far as I know, and I could be off, there could have been other instances, maybe in other sports, but this is the first time we've really had this to where and again, I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's the first time that we've at least been privy to at least the suspension or at least a hold of them from the first drive. But anyways, yeah, that was it. It's very unprofessional, but with all due respect, I mean, I don't know how I can say this with what I'm about to say, but I personally, I don't think George Pickens is the most professional person in the world. It doesn't blow me away. I expected more out of CeeDee Lamb, but look, you're in Vegas. I'm not going to judge harshly because, they didn't hurt anybody. They were just being stupid. God knows I was stupid. Maybe wasn't getting paid millions, but hold them out. But it was very interesting that was the first time. I'm just curious if the Raiders were better if that would have happened. But anyways, that's just
good point
out loud. But anyways.
Back to the game, though. So what I think is going to happen is I think the Eagles are going to come out and they're going to play the game like they want to make a statement to everybody. It's not a fluke that we're 8-2. We're 8-2 because we may only be mediocre or less than mediocre when it comes to stats and things like that. But when it comes to execution, we're the guys you want on the field because we are going to execute. Again, I just keep looking at how they played against Detroit. Such a well-played game, well-coached, well-managed, well-executed. If they did that against the Lions, there's no reason they're not going to come out and do this against the Cowboys. Saquon Barkley still has to kick it up another notch. I mean, he's up to, I think, 600 and something yards, but we need to see big games out of him for the Eagles to continue that great success. But if that defense can play again like they played this past week, their game all day long, -3. I'll take the half a point and go Philadelphia -2.5. And I'm with you. I think it's going to be a shootout. Can't watch to wait to see the game. Lane Johnson, who you did mention, that is a concern because when that guy is not in the game, that is going to impact your running game and your passing game. It could impact. What is the condition of the center? Do we know?
I do not. I'll be honest. Cam Jurgens has been. It's kind of one of those things, like there's not really any point to look at the injury report because he's just always questionable. It might not be the worst thing in the world to maybe sit him down, but again, the Eagles, as you kind of mentioned, it's boa constrictor football. They're just going to grab a hold of you and they're just going to suffocate you. And they frustrate you. And even the batted balls. I mean, it seemed like Jared Goff was just out there going, guys, like, now you got to move them like out of the hash marks for me to complete passes now. It is impressive, but again, I just, I do worry a bit, and make no mistake about it. Even as I sit here and say, give me Dallas plus, the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. I have no doubts about that. It's just the offense they're stuck in second gear. And I know eventually it's going to click, and I'm glad that it's going to hopefully click late in the season, right in time to get into the playoffs. But anyways, going to be a good one. It's been a bit. I think this might be the Eagles' first 425, 125 game of the season. It's either 10 a.m. or standalone. Yeah. So that'll be kind of nice to enjoy a morning session and then be able to watch this. So got next up the New York Giants heading to the aforementioned Detroit Lions. The Lions are going to be 10.5-point favorites. 49.5 is your over under, plus 410 is your money line, and or for the Giants, and minus 585 for Detroit. Raider Jameis Winston almost did it. He almost got the job done. He did. He is an absolute joy to watch from afar, and not having to play him as well. If you could just kind of watch as a somewhat neutral, I don't really like the Giants, but they're not really a threat. Almost got the job done. It's interesting, though, when it comes to the Giants, for a defensive line that I think is very, very good, and they get after the quarterback plenty, they're really bad against the run. And it's frustrating as a bettor to see that. And it seems like they just can't get the job done. But I will say this, why you always buy the hook, because last week it was the Giants +7 bought the hook, and I got that in on my side. So anyways, in terms of this game, I think that Detroit just hands the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, let them run wild. And at the end of the day, I think the Lions offensive line is very good, so they may stick the Giants' young defenders at the defensive line, or at the line of scrimmage, I should say. But Jared Goff really struggled with guys putting pressure on him straight in his face against the Eagles. I think they're going to want to run the ball as much as possible, keep Jared Goff into play action, be able to keep the pass rush back. 10.5 points is a lot. They may cover, but the better in me, I can't. If you're going to give me, and I'm going to take an extra 0.5 point, because if you give a mouse a cookie, we know how that goes. Give me the Giants +11. Again, if the Lions go out and dominate, fantastic, good for them. But I think +11 is a hefty number for a Jameis Winston led team. He's going to give them some fight, and it's interesting to see him with an interim coach. Let's just put it that way, because I don't know how much. I think it's Mike Kafka. I don't know how much pull he has with Jameis. Jameis might just go rogue here pretty soon. But give me the Giants +11 under 49.5. Again, I don't. If this game does get over 50, I think we could be looking at a Detroit route. So for that +11, I'm going to need it to stay under 49.5. Raider Jim, your thoughts? Giants heading to Motown.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're going to see. I think we're going to see something like Detroit 35 and those other guys 16 or something like that. So we'll get over the 50, no problem. But the Giants, my goodness, you know what? They're number 29 overall on the defensive side of the ball. Detroit is fighting to get into the playoffs. They want to be in the playoffs, and they've just had a couple bad games that their record has put them at 6-4 right now. So they need one of those games where they can come out. It's, the reference I make frequently on this, the heavyweight fighter or the professional boxer who they bring in, the journeyman who is, 30 wins and 30 losses, and he's never knocked anybody out. We're going to put him in against the best boxer there is and see how he does. And it's really just no more than a drill for the champion. That's kind of what this game is going to be, I think. I'm with you. I like Jameis Winston a lot. I just don't foresee it going well for the Giants when they get out there this coming weekend. I do like I can't even bet the line on this one, not even +11. I just can't make. Anytime it gets to 10, it's like I just throw my hands up. But that over under, I'm going to go over all day long, not take any points, just go for 49.5. I think we'll see 50.
Yeah, I think the only thing that would work against that, again, I think if Detroit can just dominate the line of scrimmage, they just may hand the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery and just kind of slowly, methodically beat the Giants into the ground. But we got a couple big spreads we got coming up. And you know, I don't know about too many double digits. I know there is another one. We're not going to get into it specifically. Actually two more, kind of in our other games that we just mentioned. But yeah, lots of big spreads this week. And we got two relatively big ones coming up right now. Moving on. This is kind of our time to pick some of the best other games now that we're done with the AFC West and NFC East. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers heading west to face the Los Angeles Rams. Rams are going to be 6.5-point favorites in this one. 49.5 is your over-under. Tampa Bay plus 265. Rams minus 330. Raider Jim, I will give you first bite at the apple. Buccaneers at Rams.
Yeah, Rams versus Seahawks last week. I was a little surprised that the Seahawks hung around and made it as close as they did. I really expected the Rams, to put a little more space between the two teams. Didn't happen. And I didn't see enough of the game to understand why, what caused it. Was it offense? Was it defense? Was it both?
The big thing, I think, Darnold, threw 4 interceptions.
That's correct. That is correct. Yeah.
So it's almost kind of the reverse of it's the offense not being able to take advantage. But anyway, sorry.
No problem. On the other side, wow, Baker and the boys, they were making a game of it in that first half. And then what do you do when the guy on the quarterback on the other side is responsible for 6 touchdowns?
Yeah.
3 running and 3 in the air. Just call him Clark Kent and put a cape on him because that's how he was playing on Sunday. What's going to happen on this one? Tampa Bay, it's not must win, but they're going to make their chances better for the playoffs if they do win this one. If they look at the tapes from last week and Baker's not going to have 4 interceptions, if they played that well in the beginning against the Bills, and they can duplicate that coming out here to the West Coast against the Rams, I really think we're going to see a much closer game. At minus 6.5, it's the Rams wide receivers versus the Tampa Bay secondary. Secondary for the Tampa Bay is a little bit banged up right now. If Jamel Dean is not playing for Tampa Bay, then they're going to have a rookie out there, Benjamin Morrison, and that's not good when you've got Nakua and his other running mate out there. That's just not a good setup for Tampa Bay, but we'll see. There's nothing definite on if Dean is or is not going to play. And on the other side for Tampa Bay, Emeka Egbuka, I always get the vowels mixed up. Watch out for that kid. He could exploit the Rams secondary, definitely, if nothing else. Tampa Bay actually established a pretty decent running game against the Bills. If they can come out, get triple figures on that running game this week, they're going to make it a game. I like Tampa Bay plus 7 in this one, over under 59.5. Give me the over. I think it's going to be a real fun game to watch.
Yeah, 49.5.
Yeah.
I kind of read the game the same way. I am interested to see Tampa Bay go up and try and run against this this defense, because you went up against Buffalo last week. Their run defense, I think, is 31st right now. And now you got the Rams, who I believe are at least a top 10, maybe even higher than that unit against the run. They're very, very good on defense. I like the Rams minus 6.5 here. I'm not going to go full 7. Anything, if the line moves by Sunday, then I won't touch it. But I like them at 6.5. And you kind of mentioned why earlier. I think the big mismatch in this game is going to be Matthew Stafford against that Tampa Bay secondary. And look, Baker Mayfield, he kind of reminds me right now. And the Buccaneers kind of remind me of what I think it's the Black Knight from Monty Python, where it's, he just keeps getting his limbs cut off and he keeps fighting. And, by the end of it, the guy's like, what are you going to do? Bleed on me to death? Like, come on, you still want to fight, but, and that's Baker. He's got, I think the offensive line has been as banged up as any in the league. He obviously has lost Mike Evans. His defense isn't great. And even the coaching decisions this year have been very suspect. I think that Baker magic, he's trying so hard. I don't think it travels too well, especially against what I believe is the second best team in the NFC. I believe that is the Los Angeles Rams. They played the Eagles. I mean, look, if it wasn't for 2 blocked field goals, the Rams have a win over the Eagles, and that game was in Philadelphia. But again, second best team in the NFC at home against a defense or a team that's just, again, very, very hurt. And Baker's going to give it everything. So give me the over 49.5 like you. I know I talk about how good the Rams defense is, but sometimes Baker's just kind of that guy that just slams his head up against the wall. Eventually he's going to break through a few times. It's not going to be pretty all the time, but I do like over 49.5. That is Sunday night football as well. So that'll be a really, really nice one. We got really good primetime games, I believe, this week. Even tomorrow, we are recording on Wednesday, so that's why the lines are the way they are. If they have moved by the time you listen to it. But a really good one tomorrow as well for Thursday night. Obviously, we're not covering that, but Carolina at San Francisco is your Monday night football game, the next game we are going to be talking about. And, it's funny. I've kind of gone down a little bit of a rabbit hole of old sports. It started with old baseball, watching Sandy Koufax, and then it turned into Joe Montana, watching old football games. Now it's turning into watching old like sports centers and NFL prime times. And to go back in the early 2000s and talk about the Carolina Panthers and the San Francisco 49ers as NFC West rivals. And I remember it happening. I was very aware of it, but it kind of blew my mind. Anyways, it just popped into my head as I read the game. Carolina heading to San Francisco to face the Niners, who are going to be 6.5 point favorites. 48.5 is your over under. Carolina will be plus 260 on the money line and minus 320 for San Francisco there. I'll get this one started because a month ago, I made a confession to all of you that I just cannot quit the Carolina Panthers. And by God, this team has sucked me in. I keep riding along, and it's not always profitable, but last week, they got it done. I was bummed I didn't ride them all the way with the money line, but we took our points and we got the win. I think Carolina, there's something going on here between Leggett. Tet McMillan is already looking like a bona fide number one. He might be one of the best rookies in the league right now. He's been incredible. And I will say that Bryce Young has, I don't want to sit here and say overcame a lot. He had a rough rookie season, but a lot of people wrote him off, including myself. We just didn't see it happening. And he is turning into, again, I'm going to hold off on the franchise quarterback label, but I am definitely going to give him a definite starting quarterback. This is a guy that can stick around in the league. With that being said, it's very interesting. Raider Jim, you brought up the Raiders and kind of them always having an identity as you were growing up and being a fan. And I kind of see that with the Steelers. The Steelers are the same way. And the Niners as well. The Niners for me were always that kind of ground and pound team. I know they had Steve Young and Jerry Rice, but it was the early Ricky Waters, things like that. And then that defense, the defense always suffocated you. Even lately, the defense has always been the strength of this team, but they've really struggled against the pass. And that's where Carolina kind of struggles, at least offensively. They run the ball so well. Rico Dowdell has been incredible now that he's gotten out of Dallas. Good for him. But Carolina will need to take advantage of San Francisco's struggles in the secondary. I like Carolina to cover, but I think San Francisco wins. I am going to also stay under here just because, look, Carolina cannot get caught in a shootout with San Francisco. But I think 6.5, that's too many points for Carolina. And this is a big test for them. They are not good on the road. I fully understand that. But I think maybe that extra day, Monday Night Football, this is an opportunity for them to show everyone that I wasn't crazy when I said I am jumping on the Carolina bandwagon, kind of betting wise. But Raider Jim, your thoughts? Carolina at San Francisco.
San Francisco, surprising with all their injuries, the way they've been banged up, the way they have just had to plug and play people. And by gosh, there they are at 7-4, sitting in a wild card spot. Watch out. And Panthers, though, are playing for their playoff lives right now, too. But I'm with you. I think it's just going to be a little too much for them on the road. Good game, close game. They're going to put points on the board. I just think San Francisco is going to be too much. I checked the weather. There's not going to be any rain out there. Nothing significant. So Mother Nature isn't going to be a factor in this one. The over-under on this one at 48.5. Wow, you'd like to think you're going to see a shootout, but I don't know. I think I'm going to go with the under on this one. And I'm with you. I think as far as the actual covering the spread, I'll take a half point and give me a full touchdown on the Panthers, but I think a +7 on this one gets money in your pocket. 49ers defense, like you said, secondary better step up or they're going to have some hole shot in them.
Yeah, and 400 and something yards for Bryce Young last week. Incredible, fantastic. I don't think that's a recipe for success for Carolina. That or at least the yardage is fine. I think the passing attempts might be a little, but it worked last week, and got the job done. Yeah, I kind of see this one as a, Carolina's up 20-17. San Francisco drives late, and they get in the field goal range, and everyone goes, oh, they're going to kick a field goal, and Christian McCaffrey runs for 15 to score, and San Francisco wins 24-20. That's just kind of the score I wrote down. And that keeps us under 48.5. And shout out as well, Brock Purdy returned last week and played very, very well. But it's crazy that, we've gone this far, and it just seems like, oh, Mac Jones, yeah, he did his thing, but now it's time for Brock Purdy to step in, and it seems like he's picking up right where he left off. So moving on to our second to last game we'll be diving into. It is the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Chicago Bears. The Bears are going to be 3-point favorites, although I should probably put an asterisk over all of this. And I'll tell you in a minute why. But anyways, Chicago -3. And the over-under is 45.5. Pittsburgh +135 on the money line, -160 for Chicago. The reason I do believe there should be an asterisk, when I put this together, and I believe when this line was put out, it was expected that Mason Rudolph was going to be starting. However, there was a report today that apparently Aaron Rodgers is trying very hard to play in this game, and it is the Bears. And his history with the Bears, he loves going to Chicago, and he loves riling them up. So again, the asterisk -3. By the time you listen to this, there might be more definitive news and the line may have shifted, but I am going into this thought process with Mason Rudolph starting. So I'll just set that out there. But Raider Jim, I'll give you the first crack at it after that long-winded introduction. Pittsburgh at Chicago.
Well, Bears running game, that's going to be the key in this one. If they can go out there and penetrate and control the line, they're going to win this game. Mason Rudolph starting is different than having Aaron Rodgers start.
Yes.
And that makes things a little bit different. Now, when you look at that -3, you're going, Here's what I'm seeing, though. The Bears, I think they're 7-3 right now. And my goodness, they're playing some decent football. And they look like a team that is destined to be in the playoffs. Very uncharacteristic. The Steelers division is just so mediocre right now, and they're one game away from slipping out of first place and watching the Ravens take it over. And you could just see the Ravens go in there and be the team that ends up representing. Again, uncharacteristic. I'll say it again. Pittsburgh is 28th in the offense. They're 28th in the defense, and you don't see those kinds of numbers for that team, especially on that defensive side of the ball. That's going to be, again, Bears running attack is going to be the difference. They're going to open it up. I like Chicago to win this one. But I might even have to push money line on this one as opposed to, buy that half a point and take 2.5. Either way, but I'm going to go ahead. I think I'll take the half point. Chicago -2.5. over under 45.5. I think Chicago is going to put up the points. Weather's not going to be an effect over there. It's not going to impact the game, but I'm still going to go under on this one because I don't think we're going to see a lot of points.
Yeah. And again, I'm going into this thinking Mason Rudolph is starting. Because again, I think everything changes if Aaron Rodgers does. And, we can't, we record on Wednesday, so it is what it is. But again, when it comes to Chicago versus Pittsburgh, you obviously go from from Aaron Rodgers to Mason Rudolph. And you brought up the division. The AFC North is it's so precarious for the Steelers. I mean, I don't think the Steelers have been betting favorites to win that division ever this season, despite their lead that they had. But that was always knowing that Lamar Jackson was coming back. But anyways, the one thing with Chicago, plus 16 turnover differential. It's absolutely insane. I think that's a big part of it. And whether it's, kind of luck in terms of the way the ball bounces, I mean, part of that has to come into it. But you do wonder if does that run out? What else runs out for Chicago? However, in this one, I always kind of look at it. And when I first look at the line, and again, I'm going in with the assumption that the Vegas odds makers put this line together with Mason Rudolph as the starter, because I put this together on Tuesday. Everything was Mason Rudolph starting. So you're telling me that Mason Rudolph and the Pittsburgh Steelers are even, or it's a pick 'em if this was on a neutral site against the Bears that are 7-2, 7-3, excuse me. This feels a bit like a trap, but again, I'm not doing that this week. I'm just going to take what's given to me and see what happens. I am going to, of course, buy half a point because I have to. But yeah, I like Chicago minus 2.5. Pittsburgh was very reliant on that Aaron Rodgers magic. Speaking of team identities, Pittsburgh defense being as bad as they are, that's weird to me. But anyways, I Mason Rudolph, unless he's got a red nose and it's Christmas Eve, I don't think Rudolph has magic outside of that one night. And I believe we need Santa Claus for that. So give me Chicago minus 2.5. Over under. I do like the over here. I do think we are going to see some points being put up again, even if it does come from Chicago turning Mason Rudolph over, or the Steelers being able to put some points up through Mason Rudolph. But at the end of the day, I do think Chicago will get the win over 45.5. Moving on to our final game of the week that we will be diving into deeply. And it is a NFC North matchup. Everyone's chasing the Bears, and these two teams certainly are, one a little closer than the other, but it's going to be the Minnesota Vikings at the Green Bay Packers. Packers are going to be 6.5 point favorites, and the over under is 41 plus 250 for Minnesota on the money line, and Green Bay is minus 300. Raider Jim, your thoughts, Minnesota at Green Bay.
Well, let's start with the name you dropped at the beginning of the recording, and that is J.J. McCarthy. He does need to put together 4 quarters of solid football. Unfortunately for J.J., he's going to be going up against one of the most dynamic pressures that he could go up against over the last few weeks. Green Bay's defensive line and their linebackers and the edge guys, they get after the quarterback. And they are going to get after him. And that poor kid, he's just going to be running around like the Keystone Cops back there trying to make something happen. So defensive pressure is a big thing. And he's just been inconsistent he's been inconsistent. The entire offense for Minnesota has been inconsistent. On the other side, Green Bay's running game is going to go up against a pretty decent run defense with the Vikings. Josh Jacobs may or may not play. His knee is possibly still bad, and so he may not be the starter. Still, if they can come out and put together a half-decent running game and get Jordan Love some time to throw the ball, I think the Packers have this one under control. No problem. Green Bay minus 6.5. Seems like a lot. Give me a half a point. Give me the Vikings plus 7, just because I wanted to see the old school NFL type of a game. So then as the over under is 41, I think we're even going to see over on that. Give me a half a point there. Give me 40.5. But I think we can see something like a 27-24 game, and it wouldn't be surprising.
Yeah. I don't know if you have the weather up for that. Any weather in Green Bay?
No, there wasn't.
Perfect.
There's no weather anywhere, and I don't know why.
Interesting. Must all be here in San Diego.
That's
Anyways,
it. And the horse races. Oh,
yeah, exactly. Getting rain now.
Again.
You know what they're doing in Minnesota or in Green Bay, watching the whole. No, anyways. No, this is a little off to me. I don't know. 6.5 seems like a lot for a desperate team in the division. And I know it's in Green Bay. I get it. JJ McCarthy hasn't looked great. But neither is Jordan Love. And I know they got the job done against the Giants on the road, but there was a little hairy towards the end, or at least, I'm sorry, in the beginning, I should say. Towards the end is when they finally kind of flipped the switch. Green Bay's been getting a lot of points, and frankly, I just don't think their offense is good enough for it. And I don't think their defense is, they are a good defense, but they are not good enough to carry the offense like they've been needing to, like they did. They weren't able to against the Eagles, but again, 10-3, you can't jump down anyone's throat for that on the defensive side. But again, the offense is the issue for Green Bay, and 6.5 just seems like a lot, especially in the division for Minnesota. Kevin O'Connell knows, look, this is pretty much my last stand. If they don't win this game, I mean, I don't know what the percentages are, but they got to drop. They're probably already not high right now. I completely understand that, but this is kind of the nail that goes, okay, it's pretty much over. You know, you got to get Poindexter in here to figure out how we get into the playoffs now in the next X number of weeks. So I like Minnesota, and like you, I am going to buy that half a point because, again, I feel like you have to. A push is better than a loss. If this is a 7-point loss, I'd rather take a push than a loss, no matter what the half a point moves it up to in terms of the odds there. But give me Minnesota +7 and over 41. I think this is a big test for JJ McCarthy. And as inconsistent as he's been, I've seen enough to know that if he can just put it together, again, not for a full game, just not be as wildly up and down as he is. And he's got to figure out a way to get Justin Jefferson on the same page with him, because that might be an issue. His body language, trust me, and I understand the irony of an Eagles fan talking about a wide receiver being a diva. I get it. There's a lot of irony there, but he does not look happy on that field. And I think JJ McCarthy's got to find a way to get on the same page with him. Jordan Addison's out there as well. It's a very, very tough situation looking at Minnesota, but you know what? If they go in somehow and get a win here, I think a lot changes that narrative, but I don't see that happening. But I do see them keeping it within 7 and the over 41, especially if the weather isn't going to be an issue. They got to be loving it, closing in on Thanksgiving, and weather not being an issue for football. Great. So moving on to our other games that we have. I believe we have 5 here. Yes. We'll start back-to-back big spreads here. Pretty much the same, except for the over-unders. So Seattle -13.5 is heading to Tennessee to face the Titans. 40.5 is your over-under. Same thing here. The Jets heading to Baltimore. Baltimore 13.5 point favorites. 44.5 is your over-under. New England on the road, 8-point favorites as they head to Cincinnati. And look, if anyone in Joe Burrow's circle is listening to this, first of all, hit us up for an interview. Second of all, don't play this year. Don't come back. I know you want to play football, and I love that about you. Take the year. Let's see you in August, and I can't wait to see you play all the way through, but don't come back. It's not worth it. Don't do it. Anyways, New England 8-point favorites, 49.5 is your over-under in New England at Cincinnati. Jacksonville 3-point favorites as they head to the desert. Oh my goodness, Arizona, what has happened? 47.5 is your over-under. And finally, the WTF line of the week. Shout out to our friend Coach Lupien. He might have had a hand in this. Atlanta is heading to New Orleans, and the Saints will be 2-point favorites. 39.5 is your over-under. Look, I understand Kirk Cousins is starting, but what the hell? Anyways, Raider Jim, any thoughts? I'm sure I have a thought about one or two, but anyways, any thoughts on those games?
Well, I will tell you, somehow, because it was the other games, I hadn't looked all the way down, and it wasn't until you started talking about that, and I looked down at the Atlanta your comment you made there, and I almost lost it. That was a good one. You got me on that one. These games, wow, again, poor Tennessee, the Tennessee fan base. As a Raider fan, I can feel bad for anybody who's having to endure this. 13.5, though, that is, my goodness gracious. It's almost like you wish they would just stop. Just stop doing the line when it gets to over 11. And then you go to the very next game, Baltimore. And again, Baltimore on the rise. They're just going to destroy the Jets. Would I take 13.5? Probably not, but no. Surprisingly, Jacksonville only -3 on the road.
Yeah.
That one kind of surprises me after the way they dispatched the Chargers, because the Chargers, good team. I think they're a better team than Arizona. So that one kind of surprises me as well.
Yeah, I definitely, for me, the main one is Atlanta. That's crazy to me. I guess Tyler Shuck, he looked okay in his debut. And maybe he looked better in Spencer Rattler. The Superdome isn't this fortress it used to be.
No.
It is a rivalry, but I don't know. This one, thank goodness this week I told myself, don't worry about any traps. Let's assess at the end of the week, because this one is Yogi Bear style trap. Like only the slow ones fall for this one, but I will take this. I like that. It's kind of odd though to see it out there. In terms of Jacksonville, I'm kind of there with you. The one thing I will say is, Jacksonville going across country, maybe they are kind of, looking back to that Houston game and again, Arizona, Houston, not exactly the exact same, whatever longitude or latitude. Oh, I need to go back to, well, anyways. Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah. Anyways, they're not close. They're not, but anyways, they're moving time zones. And anyways, they didn't play very well. And Jacoby Brissett, look, he's going out there. He's going to try his best. He doesn't have a huge arm. I think he set the record for most completions ever, and they lost by 20 points. I don't know. Maybe the odds makers see something there. But yeah, the Atlanta line jumps out to me, and then I'm with you. The 13.5. I understand it, but I ain't touching it. I'm not even touching the over-unders, because even the Seattle one, I could see Seattle putting up 42 themselves. And there's your over-under 42-0. Sorry, Tennessee Titans fans. Maybe Cam Ward has a bit of a Bryce Young resurgence next year, but it does not look good for the Titans. And also for the Falcons, I did not realize this, but as their tailspin kind of continues, no first-round pick for them. So that's going to be something. Yeah, that's kind of the light at the end of the tunnel. If you do kind of fall apart towards the end of the year, well, we'll get a top 10, 15 draft pick. Not so much. But yeah, it's slim pickings there. We got the good ones in, luckily. It wasn't easy to pick out the ones I wanted to talk about this week. Or it wasn't difficult, is that what I said? Anyways, any best bets this week, Raider Jim?
You betcha. I'm going to take the money line on Atlanta. I like that. That's one. The other one I like is, again, I like Jacksonville -2.5. I'll take a half a point on that one. I like Bears -2.5. I believe they were playing Minnesota. Is that
Pittsburgh,
not? Yes.
Pittsburgh.
Or no, Pittsburgh. Yeah. And I think they've got a real good chance. And my other one, you would probably call it the upset. You would say, shame on you, Raider Jim. What did I just get done telling you? Me and Patrick Sr. But I'm going to take the Colts +4 over the Chiefs.
I love it. And I will say this, last week, I think I had 4 picks, and I have 4 picks again. I went 2-2. Lions didn't come through. I'll take it. Don't get me wrong. And then, hats off to the the Raiders and the Cowboys putting up points. That was one of them. I had the under, but I will say I did do a 7-point teaser, plus 200, and I hit that. So maybe I'll call it the teaser. I need a little bit of room, although I do have a money line here, or 2 money lines, so you're not going to be able to tease these. But yeah, like you, Raider Jim, Atlanta plus 110 on the money line. Give it to me. And you know what? If I fall flat on my face, okay, whatever. But you're going to give me something like that, I'm going to take it. I'm also going to take Chicago minus 2.5. But again, a massive asterisk if Mason Rudolph starts. If Aaron Rodgers starts, I'm not touching that game. Don't want any part of it. I also do like the under in the Giants-Detroit game. Again, I think Detroit wants to run the football, keep that defense or the pass rush kind of at bay, and I think they kind of turn this into a bit of a slugfest, even though the Giants aren't going to really be able to punch that, but they're not going to put up as many points as I think maybe some believe. So give me the under 49.5 there. And our final, we were on the same side on 2 of these, but we're going to be on the opposite side for my last one. Give me Kansas City money line. I want it. I have, and it's probably going to bring down the odds of this parlay a little bit. But I don't want to mess with the spread or because I think it's plus 2.5 or whatever it was, plus 3. Give me Kansas City money line. So Atlanta money line, Kansas City money line, New York Giants, Detroit Lions under 49.5. And finally, if Mason Rudolph starts, Chicago minus 2.5. But if Aaron Rodgers starts, turn it into a 3-leg parlay. But yeah, Raider Jim, final thoughts as we wrap up this episode of the NFL Weekly.
Well, I'm sure you won't be surprised by my final thoughts. And let me tell you, sometimes in the world of sports, you always see this guy passed away, this guy had an illness. I remember most of us in San Diego remember in the baseball world, the sporting world, when Tony Gwynn passed away. Mm-hmm. Devastating. And I guess maybe because I've been a Padre fan since they went into and before they went into the big leagues. And these guys would come along when you're in junior high or high school, and the records for the team was not that good, but there was a player or two you just latched onto, and they became your fan favorite. And one of those was the pitcher who passed away today at the age of 75, Randy Jones. What made Randy Jones so special as a Padre? The most unsuspecting guy you'd put into a baseball uniform and say, go pitch. This guy's fastball was in the high 80s, maybe on a good day, and he'd only hit that on the gun maybe 2 or 3 times. He recorded some of the fastest games. You know, when you're junior high, high school, you go to the game with your friends for 50 cents. You spend a lot of that time walking around the stadium, seeing if you can take your GA seat in the upper level and end up down on the field level. And we found out we couldn't do that when Randy was pitching because his games would end in about 90 minutes. There are actually telegrams in the Hall of Fame congratulating Randy for throwing the fastest game. I mean, there was one, I think it was like 89 minutes or something like that. And he also was the first Padre to get recognition as a pitcher and win the Cy Young Award. 1975, he got recorded the save in the All-Star game, came back the next year, 76, was the starting pitcher and got the win in the All-Star game. 1976, 22 wins, 14 losses. He got the Cy Young Award, finished up. Again, this guy that didn't have a fastball, 2.74 ERA. I think that was the same year, 76, when he tied Christy Mathewson for going 68 innings without giving up a walk. That's amazing. And you look at these guys nowadays that pitch 4 innings, and that's their work as a starting pitcher. Are you kidding me? Randy Jones, if outside of baseball, if you ever had a chance to hang out or be with him, one heck of a genuine, nice individual. He was the salt of the earth kind of guy, always had good words for people, always had time for the fans. You could run into Randy anywhere at Petco Park. And I've mentioned this before. Father's Day, many, many years ago, I'm walking through Petco as they're giving out, Qualcomm, and they're giving you all the dads a barbecue apron as you walked in. And as I walked through the plaza there, there stood Larry Lucchino, John Morse, Randy Jones, and every one of them signed my deal for me. And I'll always remember Larry Lucchino because I think it was the '98 Padres, and I was thanking him for what they were doing. He says, "Man, we're having a hell of a good time." And Randy laughed, and John Morse laughed, and they were just three guys talking to anybody who came by. Randy, thanks for everything you did as a boy. Still in my heart. You're number one, man.
Amen. I echo that as well. I will tell you, I never saw Randy Jones play live, but you heard the lore growing up. He was obviously the first Cy Young in Padre history. But more than that, he was always around the Padres, whether it was through media, whether it was at the field, whether it was the Randy Jones barbecue. And for me, my experience with him, it's kind of funny you brought up that it was Father's Day and you were getting your apron or whatever, but for me, it wasn't '98. It was a little later. Oh, about dinner time, but me and my father, we would pass out the giveaways, and we would do that, and we'd do that till about the second or third inning, and then you could kind of just go chill in the upper deck and you could watch the game for free. And when we were doing that, Randy Jones actually came by, and look, I think I was 12, maybe 13, so kind of a snotty little, a teenager, or whatever. So I wasn't necessarily awestruck, but my dad was kind of telling me this is, he was a lefty and kind of going through all his lore and all that stuff. And I remember, my dad going, yeah, he's got to, because I'm a lefty batter. And he goes, yeah, he wants to pitch too. And Randy Jones goes, oh, you're going to be a lefty, huh? My dad kind of rolls his eyes. He goes, no, he throws right. And Randy Jones, what? How can you bat left? But only
Randy.
Right? I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, it's just a very down to earth, just take some time to talk with, some people. He was, and again, that is not, I didn't get that experience because I was passing those things out and because we knew somebody. Again, like Raider Jim said, if you walk around Petco, or in this case, Qualcomm, you would run into him and you could shake his hand. You could say, hey, how you doing? Maybe take a picture. He was just a great guy. And I know he's had some health issues over the past few years that he's fought through. All I can say is, he's no longer in pain, and to his friends, family, everyone close to them, close to Randy Jones, thoughts and prayers, all our condolences going out to you. Really all of San Diego is kind of mourning one today. I do have one more final thought, and this is kind of on the same vein, but it's going to be up the road, actually closer to where Raider Jim's team used to call home. John Beam, the legendary coach from Laney Community College. You may know him if you're a fan of Last Chance U. He was one of the, I think, final. I don't know if they still do it, but they had done others in Mississippi and I think Oklahoma, and then they went to Oakland, and it was Lainey College, and we were all introduced to John Beam. And if you know anything about Last Chance U, and if you watch it from season 1 to whatever, as it went from, I think it was 3 seasons in Mississippi with that school, then 2 or 3 seasons with the school in Oklahoma, and then they went to Laney. You saw the difference in the coaching, and there's no disrespect to the first 2 coaches. I don't know their names off the top of my head. Doesn't matter. But you saw the difference in John Beam and the way he had to deal with things at the community college level and inspire men that have been passed up on, have made mistakes that have put them behind the 8 ball, and now they have to kind of go through it the hard way. He was there. They always kind of call it the safety net at the bottom. That's what they were. There's nothing below them, though. And he was the football coach and I believe athletic director. Unfortunately, last week he was shot and succumbed to his injuries. Again, if you get an opportunity, if you have Netflix, if you like football docuseries, if you just like documentaries in general, the stories they tell, they're not the easiest because it doesn't always end well. But again, the the John Beam story is one that should be told, and I assume going forward will be told. I think it was I don't know his name, but there was a Bears player who got an interception, and he had played for John Beam. He was actually the one who told, John Beam was the one who told him and his brother that his father had passed, and kind of took that role. So again, kind of piggybacking off of our first final thought, thoughts and prayers to everyone affected, obviously friends and family, but also all of his former players and current players as well, and everyone he affected, because it was more than just whether or not you were a good right tackle. Everyone can be your Nick Saban and your Kalen DeBoers and stuff like that. It is easy, relatively easy at that stage when you have that type of funding and stuff like that. But for a guy like John Beam, and also I'm going to throw Coach in here as well, because he's at community college doing the Lord's work as well, working with men and women, getting their tennis going as well. But John Beam, a legend, gone way, way, way too soon. Thoughts and prayers to everyone. Condolences to the family. But tough way to end a good episode. But we thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the NFL Weekly, presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are First. It's time for y'all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to y'all very soon. Take care.